Hey everybody, welcome on board my new channel. My name is Joe, and today I will fly a non-precision approach VOR DME into Zakynthos in Greece. So let's just see our beautiful plane. Today we'll be operating a Ryanair Boeing 737-800 towards this beautiful island of Zakynthos. So I will quickly freeze the sim just in order to let you know what we are about to do. So at the moment we're about to do the Acadie transition on the arrival for the VOR DME Approach runway 34 in Zakynthos. So as you can see here, what we are doing is a 13 miles arc towards from Zakynthos VOR, which is set on both sides, by the way, and then we will go towards the center fix, and then we will intercept the final approach track at Litsi. Acadie is 5,000 feet. We have to remember that. Now we're descending towards flight level 100, so soonly we will start descending towards an altitude. And that's about it. Basically we will land with flaps 40, and we have auto brake 3 which is set, and obviously after the landing we will start putting the reverses as well. Don't worry about this, the plane is still in freeze mode, so it's not reacting accordingly to the reality, but we will see how we can correct it very soon. So that's about it. The rest will be briefed during the flight actually, and that's it. Okay, so let's just clean this, and now I believe we can continue the flight. So let's go. So we are unfreezed and unfrozen, and let's say, okay, the ATC would tell us to start descending 5,000 feet, so we will say 5,000 feet, and the QNH is 1020, so let's say QNH 1020. Now the pilot flying would say set, pilot monitoring would say altitude 5,000 feet is checked, and then pilot flying would just say set QNH 1020, passing 10,200 feet and descending altitude 5,000 feet. Good. And standby altimeter is set, no flags. This is all checked. Now we just passed the 10,000 feet mark, so we can do what we call the 10 checks. 10 checks we go by the acronym, which is FLAPS. Okay, so FLAPS for fuel, we have 2.7 balanced and 4 pumps on. The lights, we can put them on, and we keep the taxi light off, which is just to let us know, to keep us as a reminder if we have been clear to land or not. Today is not yet the case, so we keep taxi light off for the moment. The A stands for angle of bank, we have 25 degrees. The the P for pressurization, everything is set properly, and we have of course differential pressure of 3.8, which is what we want. We can see it's actually decreasing, so that's correct indication. The S stands for seat belts. Let's pretend that the cabin crew is ready as well, that the cabin is secure. Okay, and then we can add a small R for recall, and a CC, which would be for cabin crew. We would let them know cabin crew 10 minutes to landing. Okay, so now because we're descending, let's pretend that the ATC clears us for the approach. So we'll just put progress page 4. We can check our cross-track error, RNP, in case we're doing an RNP approach, and all this kind of stuff. And here it's an RNP arrival actually, so yeah, with this waypoint Acadie. So yeah, that's about it. And for the rest, because we are clear to the approach, for the approach we can set the altitudes by ourselves. So now next will be 1 mile from Acadie. We will set the next restriction, which will be 3,000 feet. At this point, Charlie Delta 34, which is our center fix, which is there. We're descending towards an altitude as well, so because we're descending towards an altitude, we can do the frisk before actually completing the approach checklist. So the frisk goes by F for frequencies, we get 110.8 on both sides. The rings for the runway 34, 111, we can disregard it, it was for the top of descent. 10 miles, by 10 miles we want to be respecting the 3-2-1 rule, which is 3,000 feet, 200 knots, and flaps 1 minimum. That means that we will prevent high energy approach by doing so. And 6 miles, in real life we do it at 4 miles, especially in good in VMC conditions. However, today is 6 miles, because what we are doing is that we'll put the gear down, flap 15 landing checklist down to flaps, but because I'm flying alone and on a sim, I will allow me a little bit more time, so a little bit more distance, and that's it. 1 mile to go from Acadie. As I said, next altitude we will set 3,000 feet, and that's it. We're still a little bit fast, but it's okay actually. The plane is reacting more or less correctly, even though we have this kind of tailwind, so that's okay. So now we finished, and of course, so we did frisks of frequencies, rings, idents, Zakynthos set on both sides, standbys are set, no flags, courses 340 and 340. Good. Now the frisk is complete, we can do the approach checklist, altimeters and instruments, they are set and cross-checked, and approach aids, they are all checked and set. Good. So now guys, what is the next step that we will need to do? Well, basically we're approaching around 16 miles from landing, so now we can actually start decelerating soon, and then of course 1 mile before the center fix we will set again the next altitude, which will be at least 2,200 feet. Good. Let's quickly look at this beautiful approach. It always amazes me when I check in, you know, how fast we are going versus how slow it looks like we are going when we are inside this tiny flight deck. So that's it guys, I believe it's time to start reducing, so let's go to flaps 1, and we can put a little bit of speed brakes when we can see we have 20 knots of tailwind for the moment. So next will be 1 mile from the center fix. So we have flaps 1, let's go with flaps 5, speed check, flaps 5, we have flaps 5 configured here. I'm using some assigned buttons on my throttle quadrant to put the flaps and the gear down and everything, so don't worry if you don't see me doing it with the mouse, I'm just clicking on some buttons. Good, now we're turning, let's put the final approach track, and we are more or less 1 mile from the center fix, so let's go with next altitude 2,200 feet. For this approach, because it's VOR DME, we want to be with enough path, and of course we would like to have speed intervent here. So now what is going to be the next step? Next step is going to be a 2 miles before the final approach point. Just a second, I will freeze it for just 1 second, and I will save this situation, because sometimes these saved situations are not working so well. So let's just put save flight, everything is saved, and now I can unfreeze it. 2 miles before lead C, which is our FAF, we want to call approaching descent, and then we will set minimums 900 feet on our MCP altitude window, and then we will verify that we have enough path and that we are correctly on speed intervent, which is the case for the moment. We'll start descending 6 miles, we configure the plane, we complete the landing checklist, and then after that we will set the missed approach altitude, which for this approach will be 3,000 feet. Good. So 2 miles from lead C, approaching descent, minimums 900 feet. Set, enough path, speed intervent. Let's set as well our final approach track 339, and let's say that the ATC clears us to land, so we are clear to land, taxi light goes there. 25,000, so 2,500 we got this terrain noted, and the next will be the FAF call. At the FAF I will verify that we are correctly at 2,200 feet and that we have no flags. Okay, so that's it. As you can see, we got a little bit of how can I say it, we got a little bit of the crosswind here, 20 knots, so we will see. So FAF 2000, yeah, it was 2,200 feet, no flags, and altitude checked, no flags. So this is all checked. 6 miles, we can put the gear down, speed check, gear down, flaps 15, please, speed check, flaps 15, we set the speed accordingly. We can start the landing checklist, start switches,
1,000 to go.
Recall is checked, as you can see here, speed brake, armed, green light, landing gear down 3 greens, auto brake 3 set, flaps, we can put flaps 25, let's decelerate as well, and now flaps 40, and let's put the flaps. How can we verify now if we are flying correctly with what we had set on the FMC? Here we got flaps, so flaps 40, 40 green light, and landing lights is on. Landing checklist is complete. Alright guys, quick pause here. As you will see, next step is to set the missed approach altitude, which is 3000 feet. At this altitude, 1300 feet, we should have absolutely no problem to set it and to keep the airplane with its approach logic. That means that the plane should keep descending. However, this is a saved situation on the Avitab tablet, and it appears that it is a bit glitchy, so the plane will go on VNAV Alt. And to be honest, VNAV Alt was not even supposed to be installed. I wanted to have normal just Alt Hold installed. But still, VNAV Alt, which is the same as Alt Hold more or less, so basically the plane will level off. But I knew it and I was expecting it. I didn't brief it because I wanted to make this video as short as possible, and I was expecting and I was hoping it would not happen, but I was still expecting it to happen. So this is why I made sure that the landing configuration was done, landing checklist was completed, that we were cleared to land, and that we would be visual with the runway and the puppy before even attempting to set the missed approach altitude. And what could we do to counteract this? Simple. If it happens, because the weather is good and we are fully stabilized, we can actually disconnect autopilot, auto throttle, reset the flight directors, and continue visually with the puppies. Of course, if this was during a 300 feet ceiling RNAV approach, for example, I would just have gone around and tried to shoot another approach. But in today's condition, I think it was a good decision to continue visually with the puppies, because we are supposed to be able to fly the plane as every pilot should be able to. So that's about it, guys. Importance of threats and errors management. What did we do in order to prevent this? Basically, we configured the airplane earlier than we would have done normally. We made sure everything was done before setting the missed approach altitude, so that if this happens, we know exactly what actions to take. That's it, guys. Let's go for the rest of the video. We'll see the landing, we will analyze it, and then we will reach the end of the video. We can set the missed approach altitude. So still progress page 4, and here on the next page we can see next will be 3000 feet. So let's set it at 3000 feet. Okay, so it's not working as I was saying, so let's just continue manually. Okay, I was saying that because sometimes this sim is not working properly, so let's just put 60% more or less to keep our speed, and we will continue our descent with more or less 800 feet per minute of descent. Minimums we are stable, so we continue, and now we will go for a landing. Landing checklist is completely complete, and even though we're flying manual with raw data, we were expecting it. As I said, this sim has shown me some wrong behaviors in the past, so I was actually expecting it, but now landing checklist was complete. We are VMC, so we can continue visually with the puppies. So what we want to do here is to keep a vertical speed of about 700 to 800 feet per minute. We want to have the runway which will look straight in front of us. That will mean that we are aligned with the center line. And then after that, because our nose is pointing to the left, so a little bit more of rate of descent. To go back on this too wide and too wet. Not more than 1000 feet per minute though. So you see, it's not so easy to fly and to talk at the same time, but it's okay. Now we will look okay. Speed is
40,
okay.
30, 20, 10.
Let's flare, a little bit of right rudder, reverses, and now we can brake, manual braking, 100 knots,
80 knots.
80 knots. Of course we have the speed brakes up, manual braking again. Speed is gonna be fine, we can vacate here. So now it's time to start turning. Reverses, we can remove them, and we can turn now towards our parking. At least to vacate the runway, then we will cross-check what is our landing, how was our landing, and that's it. So speed brakes, we can hear that they are going back up, and now we are just vacating the runway. Okay, so here we will have the flare. As you will see, the flare, right rudder and left aileron into the wind to keep the wings level. We will touch first with the left wheel. Normally we should touch with both at the same time, but this was still within limits, I would say. And a little bit more right rudder would have been welcome, but still acceptable though. When you roll out, remember to keep that right rudder in, otherwise the plane will have the tendency to continue turning towards the left side of the runway. That was a bit positive landing, however with flaps 40, not the easiest one, but this was good for us because we wanted to vacate the runway without backtracking, which we actually succeeded. The runway is looking like a straight line in front of us. We have 2 white and 2 red, which is okay. So we are on path, 800 feet per minute, that looks okay.
50.
And around
40,
20 to 10
30,
feet we will start
20,
flaring,
10.
flare, right rudder, left aileron. And that's it. We keep the left ailerons of course, and we keep the right rudder to maintain the center line, because otherwise the plane will just start rolling towards the left of the runway. Alright guys, we are coming towards the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you found it interesting, and if you have some remarks or positive critics, please let me know. I will try to be better with the time. So if you found it interesting, please subscribe, because the next videos will be very challenging as well, and I hope to see you soon on the channel. Thank you and see you next time.